Welcome, everybody. My name is Tahid Chappelle, and I'm the Executive Director of the New Jersey Department of State's Cannabis Training Academy. We're the state's no-cost technical assistance program aimed at helping you understand the cannabis licensing application process and to gain a deeper insight on the cannabis industry inside the Garden State. If you're interested in the cannabis industry or thinking about pursuing a cannabis license, please learn more about us at CTA.NJ.GOV, or you can always contact us at cta@sos.nj.gov. If you're here or you're watching this recorded webinar, this is our first Legacy to Legal webinar titled Know Before You Go, the benefits and drawbacks of transitioning to legal. We'll be producing these webinars periodically to help those who may identify themselves as legacy operators to understand what it takes to transition to the regulated market, with these conversations led by people who actually succeeded in making this transition happen. This specific webinar will explore the challenges legacy operators encounter when transitioning from underground operations to the regulated cannabis market. What key considerations should entrepreneurs keep in mind when moving from a home-based business to a publicly regulated one? Join us as we engage with a local dispensary owner, John Dockery, who made the leap from the underground market to successfully running a licensed cannabis business in Trenton. So, John, the floor is yours to give our audience a brief background of who you are and what you're doing right now.
I'm John Dockery. I was born and raised in Trenton, New Jersey. I'm the founder, the CEO of Moja Life, retail and cultivation now. So we are on to new endeavors. I'm just happy to be in this space.
Well, thanks, John, and thank you again for taking some time out of your busy schedule to drop some wisdom and some knowledge for our students. We really appreciate it. We're going to talk a little bit about your background and your transition, of course, and we'll start with our first questions, though. So, John, you've been vocal about your legacy experience here in New Jersey. Can you talk to us a little bit about the experience you've had navigating from legacy to the regulated market?
I've been selling cannabis for over 20 something years. I've been selling cannabis like most of my friends since high school. To transition from the legacy side to the legal side was probably the biggest jump that I've ever done in my life. I still remember the first time me telling my friends that I was, going to, take on the venture of, going legal. They were like, "Oh man, you're gonna go to jail, man. They just doing that to set you up." And it was like, "Nah, man, I'm gonna take the chance because, we shouldn't be still taking the risk of doing it on the legacy side."
Mm-hmm.
And I took that risk, and I'm here to speak about it.
Now let's talk about your initial thoughts on legalization. The market itself, from a legal perspective, is still in its infancy. When adult use legalization was introduced and licenses soon became available, how did you begin considering transitioning into the regulated market? What was your thought process before you made any moves?
I actually had my friend Tahir Johnson. I used to beat him down. I mean, every day, all day long, and I would tax him about, the legal market, and I would say, what's the benefits, and he would, tell me a lot about the benefits of, transitioning to the space. But the thing that I I just had a brain freeze.
It's all good. It's all good. Just talk to us about when things became legal and the licenses became available.
Yeah, when it became available, I actually was selling. I was still selling cannabis. I was working a job, and I told the people at the job, I was like, man, as soon as cannabis becomes legal, I'm leaving, and I'm going to go get me a license, and I'm going to go get me a dispensary. And the day that it became legal, I literally told my manager at the job, like, I'm out of here. I mean, I've been selling weed this whole time, and I'm going to, try my luck. And I started, I started asking questions. I started, doing a lot of research. And like I said, I beat Tahir Johnson's ear down, and he introduced me to a couple of people, and then I was, from there, I considered, like I should just go forward with it, and I took my chances.
You took your chances, and there's reward with some risk, as I'm sure you've learned and you're
Oh,
continuing to learn. So was there any specific moment that kind of made you say, you know what, this is it? Was it a news article? Was it a certain conversation? Was there any specific spark or moment that you were like, I'm calling my manager and quitting, like I'm done? Like, was there any immediate moment, or was this like a gradual processing moment for you?
um, to be honest, I had about 100 pounds of weed in my garage, and it was hard to sleep at night, and I just had that feeling like, you know, I'm gonna, something's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Maybe not go to jail, but maybe something else may happen. And I had at the time I had a 2-year-old, and I was just like, you know what? I got to be here for her. And I was like, I can't keep taking these type of risks, and that was probably my moment. At that moment, I said, whatever it takes for me to get a license, I'm going to get a license. And I was one of the first 11 in the state to get a license. And I still remember that day, the day that Tahir called me and he was like, "Hey," he's like, "I got a license," and I was like, "Yo," I was excited for him. And then he was like, "Yo, you got one too," and I was like, "Oh shit," you know what I mean? Like that's crazy, you know what I mean? So just that moment right there, and and how it all went, you know.
And if I remember correctly, I think I was next to you in one of the CRC meetings when they announced that you got your annual. I think that felt like, or was it a conditional? It felt like a
I
long
think
ago.
that was here when he got his annual.
Mhm.
I got my annual down in Atlantic City. I had a lot of hurdles. It took me a long time to get an annual. I had a lot of stuff with the city. We were going through a transition of city council, so
Mhm.
that had to run its course. And the city council that was on the board at the time, they were kind of not feeling cannabis. They weren't really receptive to cannabis at the time.
Right.
As much as I tried and I bugged them, I called their phones. They used to say, "How did you get my personal number?" I was like, "Man, listen, I'm from Trenton. Y'all from Trenton. We know the same people." So I mean, I was popping up at grocery stores on them, like, yeah. So I mean, you have to put that type of work in, and especially at that time. I mean, nobody else was doing it. I
Mhm.
had no blueprint of like what I should do. I was just doing what I was capable of doing, and at the time, it was like you got to take this as like they're the plugs and they got the keys and you got to get to them. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely. In fact, we're going to talk about a timeline of events and how long it takes. And good transition though into education. You mentioned Tahir being a source of education. Where else did you look to educate yourself about obtaining a license, and what resources did you turn for guidance?
when I first knew that I really was going to take this serious, I took a class at Mercer County. Sarah Trent had a class. It was like the first cannabis course that they were like that was available that I've seen. And actually, one of my friends called me. He was like, "Yo, man," he was like, "They got a cannabis course at Mercer County." He was like, "It's like $500." He was like, "You should do it." And I was like, "Man." In my mind, I thought, man, I don't need that class. You know what I mean? I know everything. I've been selling weed since I was 16 years old. And I took this class that Sarah Trent was offering, and I learned so much knowledge. I still remember coming out, like, talking to them about, terpenes and cannabinoids and stuff like that. And they were like, oh. So I took this class, and I was just excited every week that this class was going on, and I was just like, I had to go out and obtain the information and the knowledge to succeed in this space, and that was one of my first steps. Any class or any event that they were having about cannabis, I was showing up and educating myself.
Showing up and is important, and following through and making sure that you're meeting the right people. Absolutely. And for those that are just joining us too, if you have any questions for us, please use the Q&A box in your Zoom chat or in your Zoom box, or drop a question in the Zoom chat and we'll get to it at the end of these questions. Johnny, you have a retail dispensary right now. When you're going and looking at the licenses, what made you want to go for retail? And are you looking at other licenses as well now that you've succeeded in this one?
Yes, the reason why I chose retail, I thought it would be an easier transition at the time. I felt as though that I was selling weed already. I'm still selling weed in some form of fashion, right? So I figured that would be the easiest thing for me to do at the time. And I said, why not do it here in Trenton?
Right. Right. As you progress further into the licensing process, talk about the unexpected challenges or the issues. I'm sure there was a couple things that you were not prepared for, or you didn't know that you need to know. Can you talk to us about the unexpected challenges?
Well, like you saying, you asked a question before about like other licensing. If I was thinking about taking on, I actually have another license in cultivation. Um, the night and day, you know what I mean? So everybody's story is not going to be the same. So my story is not going to be the next person's story. The next person's story is not going to be my story. So my cultivation license was easy breezy. Like it was just like I got local approval in 30 days. I got, it was just everything was moving along. I didn't have any cure letters. I just was like flying along. I was flying colors. And my retail license was like, I mean, I used to wake up in the middle of the night screaming, like, why aren't they letting this go through? Like I said, I had to wait till the new city council came on. I didn't know anybody on the council prior to me having the license, So I started showing up to city council meetings, and I started, asking questions. I started, sending emails, and just going through the process of like how long it took and how much time and effort it took just to get a local approval, which is like just mind blowing to me. And not only that, just learning from going through city council, learning about other things in my city that were going on, that I was just like, yo, this is crazy. Like this is like stuff like this stuff really goes on outside of cannabis. It made
Right.
me want to know more how the city works and how officials pass these laws and resolutions and everything else and stuff.
And previous before this, Johnny, you weren't really involved in showing up to city council, right? You
Nah,
weren't involved. Like this is a
I,
new experience for you, right? Like
yeah,
showing up
I,
all of a sudden.
absolutely. I was green, like we say. I was super green. I didn't know what the city council did. I thought that the mayor ran the city. I thought like, if he says okay, then it's a go. I didn't know that they had to vote on things. I mean, I was just oblivious to all of it, and I learned a lot just going through the process of opening my retail.
Absolutely. And let's talk about some of those major hurdles that you did mention. Two of the big things outside of money that a lot of aspiring cannabis entrepreneurs face is real estate acquisition and municipal approval. How did you tackle those two things? How did you learn about the municipality? And then how did you find an actual location that fit all the parameters and the requirements?
So when I was looking for a location, I thought I had found the key location. Is literally right around the corner. I was like, "Oh, this is the best location." It was the worst location. It didn't have any parking, and I think that's the one of the biggest things. You have to find somewhere that has some type of parking.
Mm.
So the reason that I chose my building had a parking garage right in the back of it. So I said, okay, downtowns typically don't have parking. It's usually just street parking. But if I can get the closest to a parking garage, was one of the biggest things that I look for. So I look for real estate that had parking or access to some type of parking. The other thing that I was looking for was somewhere that already had people like coming there. So originally, when I picked my building, it was a Starbucks next door. So I was like, well, Starbucks is here, you know. And that was another reason why I chose my location, and why I decided to place my business here. Some of the hurdles that I had to go through was I'm in a historical section of Trenton, like downtown is historical. So there was things that they told me that I couldn't do. I couldn't have a steel door. I had to have a wooden door. I had to have certain colors. I couldn't just have free range as most people would. So like I said, everybody's story is going to be different, but those were like hurdles that I had to go through. I literally had to go through a historical board just to approve the wooden windows that I have, and it
They
was
don't
just,
tell you that up front either.
they
They
don't,
don't
they
tell
don't
you
no,
that.
you just think you're going to get a store, you're going to open up and you're going to sell cannabis and everybody's going to come. And that's not usually the truth of it.
So, in retrospect, is there anything you would do differently now? One, for your dispensary or for your cultivation? Is there anything looking back that you would have done differently now that you know?
I would have done cultivation first.
Hmm.
I think our market is in need of cultivators that are, that know the craft, that
Yeah.
knows. So I think that's the only thing I would have done different.
So if you're a grower and you're listening to this, Johnny needs some new strains, some new
Yeah,
product.
maybe I would have also picked another. Even though I like my location, I might have would have picked another location too.
And I'm glad that you brought up, using clues about location. What does the foot traffic look like? What does the parking situation look like? What are the other businesses around this particular location? Obviously, you're going to want to find out from the municipal clerk, from council members, is this particular location zoned properly? Would this be an appropriate place that I could get approval for? Like, these are definitely questions you're going to want to know from the municipality before you decide. But having a Starbucks next to you in a parking garage, not too bad.
Not
Not
too
too
bad.
bad. There's always
Even though
something going on.
Starbucks has left, but now we're getting a new kind of like business there that's going to bring in a lot of foot traffic also.
Excellent, excellent. Now, one of the things I mentioned as a hurdle, a lot of things that kind of, may dissuade people from trying to transition from legacy to regulated market is the amount of money it's going to take. And I know we have some questions about that. Can you talk about what was it like to raise money in terms of you have to put yourself out there now. You have to find investors or you have to go to family and friends to raise capital. What's that experience like? How did you start and what are some tips for people in terms of raising money, starting from nothing?
My best tip is, put your offer out there. Make sure you get you a pitch that takes you 5 minutes. They call it the elevator pitch. I learned the elevator pitch also. As much time as you're on the elevator, make sure you be able to get all your points across to investors. Find an investor was extremely hard, extremely hard. You go through a lot of people. You find people saying, "Hey, I got the money. Hey, I know where to get the money at." You go to sleep thinking till the next day you're going to wake up and you're going to have an account full of money. And it's going to be
That
on.
cash is gonna be right there, the zero, zero, zeros and commas, right?
It doesn't work that way. You have to vet these investors. Some of them are predatory. Some of them are predatory because they know that you come from the legacy market and they think that you don't know too much. So you got to be very mindful. I had deals on the table that were perpetuity, that were like royalty deals that I would have never been able to make it work, and I would have probably lost my business.
Wow.
You have to be very, very careful about that. But raising capital, um, reach out to people, show up to events. They're always at events. People that are always looking to invest are always at events. Um, Ask around. LinkedIn is a great source of finding an investor. Um, Different things that typically legacy guys wouldn't do. Uh, it's something that you have to go through over and over and over again. You have to get your short deck together. Make sure your short deck is 2 pages at most, because the attention spans to most investors are very short. Um, Put your long deck together that's really in detail. So when they do call, say, well, I got a long deck to show you. If you're interested in my short deck, you're most likely going to be interested in my long deck. Just make sure those things are there
And
to
for
get
those,
you.
Johnny, you're using some terms that maybe people may not be familiar with. Decks, pitch decks, right? That's what you're talking about. Making a nice, canva.com is free. Y'all can get on the presentations and make a presentation about your thoughts on your business, why you're trying to invest, the amount of money that you need. We do have a question related to money, if you don't mind giving an estimation. Startup cost. Is there a ballpark number that you would say people should have maybe in the bank or expect to raise if they want to go for a cannabis license, whether that's cultivation or retail?
Everybody's different. I tell you, I raised 750,000 from a person that never raised money before at all.
Wow.
So if I can raise 750,000, I mean, you can do it. Just put your mind to it. Um, but yeah, I mean, my building was actually a shell. I barely have floors. You can look from the first floor all the way to the third floor. So I mean, everybody's going to be different. Maybe you have a building that you don't have to do much of a build out to it. I'm actually sitting inside of my building. I'm sitting inside of a vault that I had to literally pour concrete inside this building and
Mm-hmm.
build my own vault. Um, so I had different things like that. I didn't have doors. I didn't have a bathroom in here. I mean, I didn't have heat. I didn't have anything in this building.
I
So
remember it was
yeah,
just bones.
it was just bones. So yeah, I mean, I would say that on the average from I've heard is a half a million to $1 million that you should be trying to look to raise.
Yeah, if you think you've raised enough, you have not. Always secure some more.
Absolutely. Secure some more because a lot of it is we think about just the build out cost just to get open. And once we get open, oh, we're gonna be making so much money that we ain't gonna need, but that's usually not the case. You need that money for operational expenses to hold you over for at least 3 months to 6 months. Until you get your feet wet, until you start getting your regulars to keep coming back in, until all that
Right.
stuff, you start to really see things after about 3 months.
All right, those monthly bills keep coming after you operate too. Listen, there's
Yeah,
some
well,
recurring
when
payments.
you start operating, it's a whole nother bill. You got to make sure you make payroll every week. You don't want nobody coming in and talk about they didn't get paid. Um, that's the biggest fear. You
Right.
don't want that to happen.
And this can be, but not very often. It's not a one-man show. It's not a one-man army. It's not a one-person thing. Let's talk about partners. Can you talk to us about finding the right partners and learning from the right people? How did you start discerning who were good people that you wanted to bring on, and what type of partners did you bring on to make your dream a reality?
Well, I like to smile and say this: I'm 100% owner. I don't have any partners, but I do have a great team, and I found people that were already established in the space. Um, I found good bud tenders that worked at other dispensaries. My general manager, he came from a couple of other dispensaries from the medical side, from the retail side in other states, and I said I must have this guy, and I partnered with people that that seen the same vision that I seen, and also I partnered with people that were already in the space because I'm still the new guy. I'm still the new guy in this space. Even though I sold weed for 20 years, it's different when we're talking about metric tags and different things like that. And make sure you just have good people on your team. Um, just
And
good,
I
genuine people.
and I'm glad that you brought that up because there is a difference, right, in being a partner versus a vendor versus a contractor. You mentioned that you don't technically have any partners. You're 100% owner. I'm sure I know people who've had to negotiate giving up some of that ownership. How did you kind of navigate those conversations too to make sure that you wanted to keep what was yours?
Yeah, I wanted to keep 100% ownership. I, I, I I mean, I think a lot of it comes because I was still one of the first ones in the space. Uh, so I mean, I had emails every day from people that were looking to invest. Um, and my biggest thing was I wanted to be 100% owner. I didn't want to have to answer to anybody. I didn't want to. Just my personal feelings. But now that I'm in cultivation, I do have a partner that I'm saying, hey, let's partner up and let's make this happen. So different things call for different different scenarios.
Right. Appreciate it. And for those that are just joining us right now, you're listening to John Dockery, the CEO and founder of Trenton's first adult use cannabis dispensary in the state of New Jersey. He's dropping some gems on transitioning from legacy to the regulated market. If you have any questions, please drop your questions in the Q&A box in your Zoom box, or drop your questions in the Zoom chat and we'll get to them. We're close to the end of our questions. We'll get into some live Q&As that we have right now. Johnny, three more questions for you. Let's talk about contracts and business deals. You had mentioned perpetuity. You had mentioned ownership. Can you talk about how do people who may not have ever had to deal with contracts, how do you learn about contracts? What do you do to understand that you're not being taken advantage of? Can you talk to us about that?
Um, when I started this space, I didn't know anything about contracts. And to be honest with you, I had signed a contract uh, that wasn't for me. I had joined a brand, and I said, to be quite frank, I was like, it doesn't sound bad. The numbers were small numbers, and I was just like, oh, what's a 3% gross? Oh, what's a 3% net? Oh, it's only 3%, and I didn't know what that 3% gross meant. I thought the 3% gross was just like, I'll be making a lot of money and I'll just give 3%. What's 3% of $1? It's only 3 pennies. So it turned out to be a lot. The 3% ended up turning out to be about 15 to 20% of what I was going to bring home. And I just I just didn't sit. It didn't sit well once I understood what I signed. Um, the good thing about it is that also in the contract was other things that I signed to too, and I was able to maneuver out of the contract. But yeah, sometimes those little numbers, 3%, 5%, it doesn't mean much to you because it's a small number. But at the end of the day, it might be the difference between $100,000, $200,000. I had to, learn the difference between a gross revenue and a net revenue, a royalty revenue, perpetuity deals, as far as like deals that never end. You don't, I mean, it's not, I don't want to tell no one it's not for you because maybe that's the only option. And maybe you see yourself making money. So don't listen and say, I'm not saying it's not, don't do that deal, don't run away from it because it may work for you. You know what I mean? And that's fine. Maybe you want to make $200,000, $300,000 a year, and you can see yourself making that with that type of deal, and that's perfectly fine. But yeah, I had to, once I made that mistake about signing a contract and I didn't really know what the numbers were, ever since then, I'll get out a pen and paper, and if it doesn't look right on the pen and paper, I'm not signing it at
That's
all.
not mathing.
It's
Yes.
not
Trust
math.
your intuition in your gut sometimes, huh?
Yeah. So it's the same thing as going from the street side. You know what I mean? If you have a bad feeling about somebody, um, and like you went to he's told you to meet him in the alleyway, and it was a sketchy alleyway, and you see people just moving around the alleyway before you walk in. You don't walk into the alleyway. So I mean, a lot of the things that I've learned on the legacy side, I still use them on this side. Um,
I want to touch on that real quick, Johnny, because you just mentioned that. What skills did you take from the legacy that you're utilizing or utilized to get your license? What are some skills that you've utilized for that?
the biggest skill that I've utilized is don't bite off more than you can chew. Sometimes we get in this space, and I mean, I don't know how many operators are on this webinar, but we make these big, gigantic orders, and you know, and then now we have a whole bunch of we have these products, and it's not like the streets. The streets is like we could find somewhere to get rid of it at, right? This stuff expires. It doesn't stay. It's not like okay, I'll sell it in 7 months from now, or I'll just sell it little by little until it's gone. It expires. It has a shelf life. So that's the thing that I've took from the street. Don't bite off more than you can chew, and just stay focused. You know what I mean, and keep going and keep plugging away. It'll turn around for you. And
Absolutely. Some people, who transition and get their license and then open up, think that that's it. They're done. They opened up their doors. They made that first sale. The money's going to come in. Life is good. So now that you've opened, Johnny, looking back, what are some lessons you've learned even after opening?
When you open, you're just starting. Yeah, it's just the beginning. I mean, the fun stuff. I still remember when I called Sarah Trent and I was in her class and I used to ask her questions all the time. And I told her, hey, Sarah, I got a conditional license. And I was just so excited because I was like, I know I had to be the only one. It's only 11 of us in the state. I have to be the only one from that class that has a conditional license, right? I'm thinking she's going to scream and clap. And she said the most humblingest thing to me. She said, okay, it's just started. And I was like, what? Man, I got a license. Like, what do you mean it just started? I'm on. I got a lottery ticket, you know? And and I felt kind of like hurt after I hung up the phone a little bit. And it was like, she was like, you're just getting started. Like, okay, you didn't do any work yet. You got to put this work in. So when I opened up, I was happy, but I also knew that I was just starting. And I knew that my old problems are going to be replaced with new problems,
Mm,
from me chasing down, contractors and making sure they came here and did what they were supposed to do, to me making sure these vendors come and they're going to drop off product when they say they're going to drop it off. And
right.
make sure that the dates on the product are the dates that they told me they were going to give me, and not I had 2 months of life, the shelf life left, So I traded in some old problems for some new problems, and but you're gonna have problems regardless, So
Hey, listen, that's life, right? Keeps you on your toes, and especially in this industry, there's never a day of dullness, that's for sure.
absolutely.
So we're gonna wrap up with my prepared questions with you, and then we're gonna get into some amazing questions that we've gotten from our students and our attendees. So thank you, everybody. Again, if there's any questions that you'd like to ask, please use the Q&A box or drop your question in the Zoom chat, and we're gonna get to them. So I'm gonna start this last question with you, Johnny, with a quote from a person that I look up to. She's a dispensary owner. I think she's the first and youngest Black woman dispensary owner in the state of Maryland. You might know her, Hope Wiseman.
I
Hope Wiseman, yes.
love hope.
Yes. One of the things that she shared on Instagram, which I thought was really, really smart and I think pertinent to this conversation. What are the benefits to operating legally? Don't I make more money on the streets? She responded, legal equals scalability, safety, and long-term profits. Not to mention, I get to have true community and social impact, plus no run-ins with the law. Times are changing. So for you, in terms of the benefits of transitioning, what are the benefits? What were the benefits and what have been the benefits in transitioning?
I mean, scaling. I mean, like she said, I mean, I would have never thought about growing cannabis, right? I was going to get some boxes in with pounds and sell them out the back door. The fact that I can sleep well at night. The fact that I help the city. I'm being positive towards the city, contributing on a positive side, yeah, of things. I don't have to be in the dark. I can proudly walk in and say I'm a cannabis owner. I can't proudly walk in and say I'm a street drug dealer. You know what I mean? As much as I wanted to, I mean, it's just some things that and that's just that's the blessing of it. I tell my daughter I'm going to my building. She's 5 years old. She knows that daddy has a building. She knows daddy's a businessman. you know, I, what am I going to do? Tell her, hey, don't go in the garage. You know what I mean? I can't do that anymore. She's 5 years old. She's a smart girl. So, I mean, those are the things that are priceless. You know what I mean? You can't put a price to that. Did I make more money on the streets? Of course I did. I didn't have to pay taxes on the street either. So I'm helping, I'm giving back. I'm also, I donate, I give back, I do different things like that. You don't want to be the guy that's coming in with the drug money.
Mm. Thank you for that. So we're gonna hop into some questions from our viewers. And again, thank you so much, Johnny, for spending some time with us and dropping a whole lot of gems and some game for people. I'm gonna package these questions together, and it talks about starting a dispensary or wanting to get a retail license, what would be the first 3 steps you would suggest if a legacy operator said, hey, listen, I want to get a dispensary like you? And, those first 3 steps, what would be the timeline that you would say, this is how long it's probably going to take you, by the way?
Um, I would find out if the city is going to not let you, but I would find out how many licenses are the city's giving out. Because it may be, you may be at that city may be at their max. Every city doesn't have to let you open up a cannabis dispensary. They only give out a certain amount of license. So I would go and find out, is the city still giving out license? That would be the first thing I do. And then I would start looking for a location. I would start, finding a place that works inside the green zone, that you're allowed to sell cannabis in. Because just because you have a store doesn't mean they're going to let you sell cannabis from that out of that store. That store may be too close to a school. It may be too close to a church. It may be something not, workable with the city or the township that you're in. That would be my first step, though, to go to the township and see how many licenses that they have, if they even have any, and start there. That would be ground zero.
And I just dropped in the Zoom chat that the New Jersey CRC, which is the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, you should get, for those that are watching, get really acquainted with them. They just launched a list of municipalities in the state of New Jersey that have opted in, which means that they allow cannabis businesses, maybe all types of licenses or some, or municipalities that have opted out. Now, just because a municipality has opted out does not mean that they can't opt in later. So if there is a town, if it's your neighborhood, if it's your community that has not opted in yet, you still have the opportunity to work on the ground with the council members and the mayor to see, could that possibly happen? Don't take no for an answer. Sometimes it's just a maybe, right?
Yeah.
So thank you. Johnny, just another thing, I don't know if you touched on this, but timeline. From the time that you wanted to get a cannabis license to the time you actually got the license, how long did that take you, roughly?
3 years. 3 years from the
Years.
time that I said I'm going to get me a cannabis license. I'm about coming up on 3 years of the time that I got my first conditional license. It was 2022. And so it took me, about 2.5 years from the time that I got a conditional license to opening up a store. So it doesn't, and that's the one thing you're gonna have to have. You're gonna have to have patience. You're gonna hear no a lot. You're gonna hear go talk to such and such, and you're gonna hear that a lot. But you keep going. It took me 2 years until I got open from getting a conditional license. When I thought that I was going to be open that Thanksgiving, when I got my conditional license, I thought I was going to be open in 6 months. I was like, 6 months, I'll be open, no problem.
Oh my goodness, the age old, hey, when are you opening? Oh, I'm gonna be opening in, listen,
Yeah,
when you think you're gonna open, just you
right,
wait, right? Just a little bit longer.
right.
Um, 3 years though. Hey, that's pretty impressive. Not bad, not bad. We'll get to another question. I'll package these 2 questions. How did you find and choose your employees? And how did you find and select your service providers? How did you find the right people and the providers?
Service providers, I want to say that I chose them by um, who they already previously worked with. I started meeting friends that were in the cannabis space, and I started learning from their mistakes, who to go with and who not to go with, who's really the real deal and who's not the real deal. So I mean, that's how I would get to like service providers. Um, it's just like anybody else. I've had the same people I started with that I'm still with. As far as like bud tenders, management, I haven't, I haven't added anybody new I didn't have here on day one. So it's that you find good people, and you keep them around, and you keep plugging along and working with them, and being fair, and I found a lot of them that were already, like I said, they were already in the space. Um,
Thank you for that, Johnny. We'll take couple more questions before we wrap this up. Again, Johnny, thank you again for your time. If you have any last minute questions, y'all, please drop them in the Q&A box or in the Zoom chat. Speaking of Zoom chat, we had a question here. What are the biggest challenges you're facing? This is for your cultivation now. Okay, so we're switching a little bit. What are the biggest challenges you're facing with the cultivator's license now that you have it or you're working to get it? Are you finding it easy with that specific license?
No, it's the license part was pretty simple. It was raising the capital for the license that I had a rough time with. A lot of people I've learned in this space don't really like to invest in cultivation. Cultivation has not done so good for a lot of investors in other states. So typically, if you out of state investors, they typically don't want to go anywhere near cultivation because most likely they probably haven't done good in other states, or other states kind of tanked and stuff like that. So that would be my answer to that.
Thank you, Johnny. Another question from the chat. What incentive do people have as unlicensed producers to transition into the legal market? You mentioned a little bit about the positives, but could you also say, there's a lot of oversight, as you know, there's a lot of regulations, and there's a lot of opportunities that make this a very difficult journey. So could you talk a little bit about unlicensed cultivators, growers right now, what would you say are some incentives for them to get a cultivation license?
I mean, to be honest, it's a biased question, but I mean, like the same thing I said, the incentive is the safe feeling. I know what it feels like when I walk into an unregulated, non-licensed grow. I can feel the tension. I mean, I can smell the good cannabis, but I also feel the tension. Like, you don't want nobody to know what you're doing back here in this space. The incentive is you can bring your craft to the masses. Your craft can be in every store if you want it to be in the state of New Jersey, and you can sleep better at night knowing that you ain't going to get in trouble for going inside your building or your space where you grow your cannabis at. You don't have to worry about the feds jumping out on you or anything like that. So, I mean, coming from the legacy side, a peace of mind is everything. You can't buy that.
That's true. Now cars are in the garage and nothing else. So that's
Yep.
John, and truly, it goes without saying, Johnny, just knowing a little bit about you and your background and sharing some of that experience watching you, it really is amazing to see where you are right now, compared to when you were first starting and trying to navigate this. So really, truly hats off to you getting to this point. But you know what? Like you said, you're just now getting started, almost like
Yeah.
a blank slate, almost like a clean slate. So
Yeah.
as we wrap up this conversation, are there any other parting thoughts or lasting thoughts that you'd like to give specifically to legacy operators who are considering or thinking or wondering, is this worth it? Should I even try to transition into the regulated market?
Yeah. My final thoughts is, coming from the legacy side, you ain't gonna know how to do it all on your own. Get next to people that have done it. Get with people that are proven. Get with those people. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be able to. I probably wouldn't be hired as a general manager anywhere but at my store, right? So,
You got the skills. What are you talking about?
get with the people that know what they're talking about. Learn, humble yourself. We don't know everything. I've been in this space for almost 8 months now as an operating owner, and I still don't know everything. But learn everything. Try to learn everything.
Thank you, Johnny. And for those that want to get in contact with you, is there a good email or a way that people can reach out to you?
Yeah. I'll put my email in the chat, and anybody could email me. I'm very personable. I talk. You text me, call me. I talk. So I'll put my email in the chat.
Thank you, Johnny. And while you do that, I'll just do some parting thoughts and some wrap up here. Again, thank you everybody who's attended tonight. And if you're watching this, this is our first ever Legacy to Legal webinar. This is focused specifically on thinking about transitioning from legacy to the regulated market. We're here with our amazing esteemed guest, Johnny Dock, who is the owner of Trenton's first adult use cannabis dispensary. And yes, like you said, one of the very earliest first licensee owners in the state. He runs Moja Life. So if you're in Trenton, make sure you check him out and check out the dispensary. And for me, again, my name is Tahit Chappelle. I am the executive director of the Cannabis Training Academy. If you are thinking about joining the cannabis industry, if you want to learn more about the licensing application process, join us at the Cannabis Training Academy. It's no cost, online, available to you 24 hours a day, 365 days a week. You can go in and every single module, which is taught by subject matter experts and people who have successfully won a license or have consulted on winning a license or know the application process, they will help you understand the licensing application process before you decide to apply. So if you're looking for any sort of information and you want to know more about the cannabis industry in New Jersey, you're thinking about getting a license, come to the Cannabis Training Academy. Find us at CTA.NJ.GOV, and you can always email us at CTA@SOS.NJ.GOV if you have any questions. Johnny, thank you so much for your time. He just dropped his contact information. We'll make sure that that also gets out to those that RSVP but couldn't join us. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We hope that you found this really insightful, and we hope that you come back again to join us as we continue this Legacy to Legal webinar series. Johnny, thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Tahit. Keep doing the good work, man. Keep doing the good work. Tahit's been since the beginning of my process. Tahit's always been a phone call away. He's always been a listening ear. Him, Jessica Gonzalez, man, I love them forever, man, for real.